Hey everyone, welcome to Home Therapy. It's your host, Anita Yokota. This is the podcast where we break free from our negative thoughts about our home and ourselves. As a licensed therapist and interior designer, I'm committed to bring you raw, relatable, and revealing home therapy sessions to help renovate the real in all of us. But guess what? It won't be all serious business. I love having fun, so we're going to definitely include the ridiculously crazy and funny moments we all experience at home. From DIY fails to spontaneous paint jobs and even discussions on how to decide on a style with your partner, how to motivate your kids to organize their spaces. Sound familiar? I get it. Even as a designer, I'm right here with you, navigating through these challenges and sharing the journey. New episodes drop every Tuesday, so get comfy, sink into your couch because this is the place to get your home therapy, one session at a time with me, Anita Yokota. Welcome, Abby and Amy. I am so honored. I was a guest on your podcast a while ago, and now my dream passion project is coming to fruition, and I get to have the both of you here. Thank you.
It's going to be so much fun. You're such a good guest on our podcast. We have people talking about it all the time, and just how you say your messages. We're really excited for this interview too.
I feel like this is my element. I really love it.
I know. It's one of my favorite parts of my job.
I did a deeper dive into the both of you. I had already did for my prep when I was a guest, but I was like, what makes Abby and Amy tick? And it was so fun because you guys actually are quite the opposites. And I know opposites attract.
Well, and it's interesting too. We'll probably get into it in the interview, but Amy is literally married to a male version of Abby, and I'm married to a male version of Amy. So it works really well because we're able to have these conversations, not only between the two of us, but then also what the other partner might be thinking. So it's helpful in business and then also in marriage.
Okay, that's what I wanted to dive into because I married an opposite. I am full on Aries, big ideas, jump into the swimming pool with my clothes on, and then go, oh crap, what'd I do? My husband dips his toes into the first little level of the step of the pool. He has to acclimate and methodically think about it. And we have a business together. As I was thinking about the two of you, you both must gain so much insight that you can take back into your partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking ahead of this about how it's so important. I think when it's your partner, the person you might be married to, sometimes you get so frustrated with it. And it's the thing that almost annoys you about them, even though you might have really liked that when you were dating. You're like, oh my gosh, he's got his stuff together. I need someone like that. And then you're further down the road and it's harder on your relationship. So Abby and I have really realized we have to see each other's strengths. We also have to see each other's weaknesses. We can't change anyone. How can we do our best to work together without continually getting frustrated at the same thing? And it's actually probably the thing that makes them them.
I totally agree. I'm a little farther along into marriage than the both of you, but I swear it's all relative. And when you say almost annoyed, the first thing in my head was no, annoyed. Annoyed. I'll be totally transparent. And Travis knows we're both therapists, so we're very transparent in our journey. I'm just dying to know, how did the both of you meet and then talk business? And also knowing that you both are opposites, how did you build that empathy? Was it just automatically baked in because female relationships are different from romantic relationships, or were there some friction to overcome working together? I think it just is fascinating to work with someone going in knowing that you have the strengths and weaknesses and how you made that work out into a beautiful business that you both have.
Well, and one thing that we do on the Herself podcast is we do get into the weeds. So I think it's important sometimes to see what the weeds are, because if you just talk surface level, no one's actually going to figure out the stressors, the major annoyances in life. Amy and I met back in 2009, maybe 2010 in college. And no, 2000, yeah, probably right around then. And we were both running on the track team. And I always say running in a quote because Amy was really good and I really wasn't. And then we were casual friends, Facebook Messenger. And then after college, we both got engaged around the same time and we were planning our weddings. And that's when we started having a lot of conversations. I actually ended up getting married just a couple weeks after Amy. We had the same wedding venue. And fast forward 10 years, we're now going on our 10-year anniversary trip back to Kauai together. So it just really comes full circle of like a Facebook message to try to figure out a wedding venue all the way to being part of each other's 10-year wedding anniversary. When we were both going into the wedding phase, going into the kid phase, there was so many parts of our lives that just kept on intertwining. And when I mentioned, hey, I kind of want to start a podcast, Amy was like, I've been wanting to start a podcast. I just don't know how to get it off the ground. Tell me all the things that you're learning from these podcast courses that you're taking. So we casually, over lunches and coffees, we would just share tips. Amy was helping me with marketing, with the online, the social side. I was helping her with the integrator type stuff. Like, how do you actually do this? And finally, one day I proposed, I popped the question, Amy, should we just do this together? And then, 4 years later, we now own 2 businesses together and have a thriving podcast. And it all started with just a couple Facebook messages back in college.
You know, what I would like to add to it is didn't start the business and be like, okay, we're opposites. We didn't have the foresight to know the things that were going to bother us. But then pretty early in, I think the difference between my husband and I and Abby and I is that we are both very open communicators. And as women, I think we tend towards that a little bit more. So when we would come up against something, I remember one fight very specifically, we would figure it out and we would say like, this is what's bothering me and figure out how to adjust. So I do think the power of female friendships, and I hope that men get there someday too, and I know some men are good communicators, is that we have the ability to be really honest, to be empathetic. When we came up against something, we didn't push it under the rug. Even if it was hard, we talked about it straight away.
And I think we have, and I'm not saying just females, but when there is conflict, we have the end goal in mind. I'm first to admit I have a lot of ego, skin in the game when I do have an argument with Travis, but I'm very cognizant of the end goal, which is maybe parenting goal, or for you, the both of you, a business goal. When I was doing couples therapy, a lot of the times the end goal was lost or missed or just forgotten. And building that empathy, because knowing at the end of the day, you both have a common goal, right? Whether it's the relationship itself or the business or kids. So thank you for being so honest. I'm just fascinated. What is one really significant takeaway from your relationship that you can then apply back to your partners?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is sometimes you have to go through something really hard in order to figure out that you guys are meant to be together, whether it's in business relationship or marriage, and also how you both just react to that big struggle. I mean, when we were having a lot of our big issues right away at the start of our business, it was the pandemic. We were like figuring out business together. I had a Down syndrome diagnosis with our 3rd child. Amy's parents were going through a separation. Like there was so many big factors at play. So yes, we were more stressed. We were less resilient. But I think that because we were both going through those, we were able to have that open conversation of like, I'm not doing well right now. I might be more snappy. I'm not pulling my weight right now. I'm not doing what I wanted to do when we started this business or as a friend. And sometimes in marriage, it's the same way. Sometimes you have to go through something really hard. If it's always sunshine and rainbows, the things like the socks on the floor or putting dishes in wrong, those are really big deals. But then when you go through something in marriage that actually is a really big deal, you realize that the littler things you can figure out and you can find solutions to them.
I totally agree. How about you?
I just think the truth of the matter is that we really can't change another person 100%. And we love them anyway. So it's like, stop looking at everything that they do that might irritate you. Lean into how helpful they are to you. We love personality tests. Well, I don't love them, but Abby loves them. I don't like to be put in any boxes. So that's where
she's an Enneagram 8, guys. No boxes for her.
Yeah. But understanding the way that we both work and respecting that, I don't want to change Abby. Abby has a ton of great qualities. Me being more type B, it doesn't mean that I don't have to give in certain areas. So for example, I used to really often double book myself. I was chaotic with my schedule. It was stressful to my work partner. It was stressful to my home partner. It was stressful to everyone. And I had to look at myself and be like, I have to get better at this. This is inappropriate. I am 37 years old. I should not double book myself. So I had to get a new system in place for my calendar. And that has vastly improved this year. And so sometimes you have to have some self-reflection and be like, I should not be causing other people this much stress, whether you're type B or type A. How can I change? And Abby used to come to me with like 1,000 questions and to-do lists, and she has stopped doing that. Like, we have more of a system so that she doesn't come to me all the time with all of those things that really drain me. So you kind of have to figure out what works and what you can let go and how you can improve.
Is it possible to be an A B'er? Because I feel like I'm like A B personality. I think part of it is just having 3 kids, to be honest, guys. I mean, my brain cells. So, listeners, we had a scheduled time for this podcast. I was so excited. I had half an hour to like wind down. And all of a sudden, my middle daughter, who's 15, comes down. She's like, okay, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, what? What? And she's like, I told you last night. I'm like, but you missed the window. And so I thought you didn't. And your sister's taking, anyways, the whole mess. So my point is, I have the best intentions of a personality A person, but my actions feel like it's B. But I love the fact of, yes, having everything be a learning moment versus being hard on ourselves or having it a rigid way. And it really sounds like for the both of you, you've learned to go with the flow of each other, but also noting the strengths of yourself and each other. So that is just so, so beautiful. I'd like to backtrack a teeny bit, going back to the partners, because I know this is a struggle for all of us, which is if we have young kids or not so young, how do we fit in the time for our partners? Travis and I, we've come to accept that it's not going to be like how it is in the movies every year when we celebrate each other's anniversary or things like that. We just have to be flexible with our time. So, how have you guys navigated sharing your time?
When you even mentioned something there with anniversaries or with holidays like Valentine's Day or birthdays, I mean, if that's really important to you, I think it's something that you should expect out of your partner or out of yourself. If it's something that's not that important, I think it's okay to let it slide. But I think when we're so busy, you have to both be on the same page with these are the things that we can just let slide. And these are the things that we need to make sure are really important to us and that we're holding very close to us and making sure that we're spending a lot of time with. None of us want to, in 18 years, when our kids are out of the house, look at a complete stranger. Like, we want to be able to be on this wild ride together, growing closer together, and not just see somebody that co-parented but didn't do it in partnership, wasn't there with us, just was there. And I've seen that happen so much with family members, with people who had kids a little bit younger than we had, where they had a lot of issues when their kids started getting older and they weren't needed as much, so to say. I mean, like right now things are so busy that it is sometimes difficult to be like, okay, like we're in this together, we're doing this, like what's going on? You don't ask the questions every day, but if you do that over and over and over again, you just keep on growing further apart. So it can be the little things like a text message when you get to work, or that hug or kiss when you come home. It can be something bigger like a date night once a month, even if it's in your basement. If you don't have family support nearby or a babysitter, can you just have time where it's just the two of you and you're actually focused on each other? It can be the bigger things like we mentioned earlier with going on a 10-year anniversary trip back to where you had your honeymoon or baby moon. But I do think that the little moments make such a big difference, and they're not that expensive and they don't take that much time, but they're intentional. You have to be intentional about it.
I think you just hit the nail on the head with the word intentional, whether it's like for me as an interior designer, bringing that intentionality to renovations and refreshes, whatever it may be with clients and my own home, it falls back to intentionality. And I know for the both of you, your passion of wanting to encourage women, finding their intention is really important.
I am such a romantic. So that's first things first. I just love the idea of love. And Abby and I are very similar in which it all comes back to values. So we don't think that we know, whoever is listening, we don't know your values. For us, our marriages are really high on our priority list. And so I think a big gut check is like, if someone just looked at how you are spending your time, could they tell your values? And so for us, we both try to make that answer be yes. And I think right now, this day and age, there is so many distractions and there's so much to do. But I don't want to live where I'm spending more time on Instagram than I am with my husband. So I think that there's just decisions you make, and it does ebb and flow. Like, we're not delirious. Like, it ebbs and flows with each season you're in. But I think the point of, are you seeking each other and are you making an effort, even if that is, I always tell people, when my kids were really little, I went to bed at 9 p.m. and I had almost next to no energy for my husband. And that was that season. But now, when we both have more energy, we do have more time to spend together. So I do just think, if marriage is your value or partnership is your value, make sure you're saving some energy for that area of your life.
I couldn't agree more. And just to let you know, as a therapist, I work with the Down syndrome community a lot. I don't know in your state what it's called, but here it's called a regional center. And so I was a social worker helping families adjust. So I have a special place in my heart for helping families in that regard, seeing their journey, right, with the diagnosis to the parenting to getting all the resources. So I just wanted to add that in, that it's very special what you do. There's a lot of output that we do every day, whether it's for our clients, for our businesses, for our family, for our partners. But really, it starts with some self care for ourselves. I know for me, I'm not consistent. I'm just a giver. And so my inclination is to put other people first, which is overall a good quality, right? But many, many seasons of being burned out or learning boundaries, I'm finally finding a better cadence of taking care of myself. How about for the both of you? How do you find self care? And because I'm an interior designer, I'm so curious, how do you find those moments in your home?
Yeah, I love that. This is an area where I do think that I'm very strong in. And for me, it really relates to mental health. I have just noticed throughout my life, like, I do think my body just needs movement in a way to help my mind that is probably on the higher end of the continuum. So for us, during the workday, even, we eat lunch and then we automatically go for a walk. And that's just paired together and we're outside. I think that's one thing a lot of people are missing, is just being outside. We're in Wisconsin. So no matter the weather, we are out there. It was like negative 17 and we're freezing, but it's important to us. We do that every workday. I work out more days than I don't, 4 or 5 times a week. I make it a priority to work out. For me, it's before my kids get home from school, because I really feel like I can refresh myself by doing that workout so that I'm a better mom to them. And I think at this point, I have just proven to myself so many times that that is true. It's an old saying, you have to fill your cup up first. I've been doing that long enough to tell you that is very true. Because if I'm off that week and I'm too busy at work and I'm not able to get my workouts in, I just do not feel well enough to be the type of mom and then the type of partner I want to be. Back to your question about partners, for a lot of women, they're in such a stressed state and we all have so much to do. Of course, you're not craving that connection with your partner because you have nothing left for them. So I really believe that it does start with you having some self-awareness. And also, maybe your partner needs to freaking do more. Both of us, our partners do so much within our households. I think it's a very good example. I also understand it could be frustrating for people to hear if they're not there yet and they haven't gone on that journey of, how do we share the load of however many kids you have together? We've been on that journey for 7 years. And so today, when my husband is grocery shopping and making dinner every night, and he unloads the kids' backpacks and he packs their snacks and he takes them to school, I know some partners don't help as much. And the only way to make it better was to have really hard conversations. And I was distressed myself. And I was like, I need you to step up more. So we've both been through that.
You guys really encourage me, because I think this is very common with a lot of people. It's like, well, I can do it. I can do it.
Right.
Okay, I got this. It's fine. It's fine. I'll do it. But I think having that conversation is so important. I've realized that I'm a fixer, and we all, yeah, as moms especially, right? But even in partnerships, there can be some codependency. At this point, I do need help and I need to express that more. I'm so happy that you guys have really found that groove and have conversations so early on. I think that's so, so important.
Like everything that you're saying right there, I think that the people in the audience, maybe it's a type A thing, maybe it's that doer mentality, but I do find that it can be harder because, like you said, you can do it. So why would you have someone else do it, or why would you stop what you're doing when you actually physically can do it? I ended up getting an autoimmune condition because I kept on doing things. If you literally push your body to the point of burnout and then keep on pushing it, your body's going to say no at some point. It's going to keep the score. Yeah. So stopping my body literally by giving me Hashimoto so that I couldn't keep on moving, it gave me that chronic fatigue. And I think a lot of women are there right now where they're having that chronic fatigue and then they're still pushing. But it goes right into the self-care question of, are you going to stop and do the workout, do the yoga session, do the face mask, read the book, or are you going to keep on going with whatever task it is and then be resentful for it at the same time? It's like there's things that we can do to physically stop, but you have to be in charge of physically stopping. After some practice, we found that both of our partners did. So the dishes won't be in the sink for a week. Like we can't have clean dishes, we can't have clean food, we can't have dinner if it's like that way. But eventually they will. It might not be on the same time frame as you, but eventually they will. I find, so Amy works out in the afternoons, and I would love to be a person who could work out in the afternoons because my mornings would be so much more open. I've tried that. I've tried it for 10 years and I just won't do it because at the end of the day, there's always something else that needs to get done. So I just do it right away in the morning, whether it is a workout or it's a walk. I have a walk with my dog 5 to 6 mornings a week. And it might only be 5 minutes, it might be 30 minutes, but it's out in nature and it's something that we do every single morning. And I just find like it sets my mind up. Like Amy mentioned, just the mindset and mental health portion of it, it sets the day up so much better for you for the whole day. You aren't just thinking about other people, you're thinking about yourself in the equation as well. And I find like that's such an important piece of the puzzle that so many women out of habit just go the wrong direction on, and then they just keep on going the wrong direction because they've always done it.
I am curious what time in the morning, because I tend to go to bed around 10, which isn't too bad, but then I do wake up around 6:30, which is ideal. But in the winter, the covers are so cozy in bed. It's so hard to get out of bed. Do you do it before the kids are up, or do you do it after they go to school? I feel like after the kids go to school, then it's a time suck. And that's where I really admire people who do work out during the work hours, because it's smart. You're prioritizing yourself. I just haven't gotten over the hump. But then early in the morning, I'm just so cozy in bed.
I know it's hard, and there's nothing's perfect, right? And then all of a sudden you might have your situation down. For instance, I would love to go for a run before the kids wake up, and then my partner's traveling, so I can't leave the house. There's not going to be an ideal situation. If we're always waiting for the ideal situation, it's not going to happen. Did I prioritize that over, doing my hair today and making sure I looked super presentable? Yeah, like I don't look super presentable today. However, that walk was more important today than picking another priority.
I just feel like everyone has to figure out what works for them, because when I was younger, I was just looking at all these 5 a.m. women or 5:30 a.m. women, and I was like, oh my God, I need to do that. Like type A people, because I think most morning worker outers fit into that category. In my head, I perceive, how dedicated. And then after doing that, I don't like it. I can work out in the afternoon, so I'm going to do that. So I would encourage everyone listening, because the answer is going to be different for everyone. I know women that work out during their lunch break at their corporate job. Like if that's what works for you, that's what works for you, but we all have to find it.
If we were to flip the script, you actually, to me, have even more discipline in the afternoon, because that's when I really, really do not want to get into my workout clothes and work out. It's so funny how perspective influences our brains and our actions and feelings so much. We all struggle with perfectionism. And as a therapist and interior designer, I'm always trying to help people overcome those limiting beliefs and the perfectionistic thinking. I'm really fascinated with the growth mindset. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, versus the perfectionistic mindset, and really embracing the process and the journey more. That's something I'm still learning every day about. Where are you at?
Yeah, I think thinking about an analogy. So this is a pretty simple analogy, but think about a campfire. Like the point of the campfire isn't to see it smoldering at the end with all the ashes up the ground. Like the whole point of the campfire is to be there for the campfire, having stories, doing s'mores, having the conversations. And especially for my personality type, Anita, I think that we have a lot of similar traits with that. I want that completed to-do list. I want everything done. I want everything crossed off. I'm going to write something on there just so I can cross it off. And it can feel good to have that feeling. But until you start to actually practice the feeling of enjoying it while it's going, you don't realize how good that to-do list being complete can actually feel. I'm like, I lived most of my life wanting just the completion, just the end. And then when you get to the end, you're like, okay, what's next? And until you can just take a step back and say, I'm going to enjoy this painting project or this office remodel, this content creation for every little step along the way. And it doesn't have to be every single second. I like this part of it. I like going and buying the paint. I like picking out the different fixtures. And when you do that, the end feels so much more satisfying than if you are just trying to get to the end.
I was a cancer nurse before I was out on my own doing entrepreneurship, and I was talking to this one patient, and he was so passionate that most of the time people that hike, they get so obsessed with getting to the top that they miss all the views on the way. And there are the prettiest views along the way. And so he said that in his shoes, he did pass away from cancer. It's always stuck with me, this idea that we had better take a look around and enjoy each stage. Abby and I are very open about how hard certain stages of life have been, in motherhood especially, but there's always something that is good. And there is always something that you can be really thankful for. And I think we're going to be sad when our kids grow up in some of these stages. Life is short. In my type B personality, we live and then we die. So we don't have to make it so fussy. We can figure out how to enjoy our time.
I'm definitely, I don't know, this is a season of a lot of change in my family. My oldest is going to college in the fall. This morning, I was standing in the hallway and you could see all 3 bedrooms of my girls. And I might cry saying this, but I saw Rachel, my oldest, a glimpse of her room, and the sunlight was coming in. Her room has dark blue walls and her decorations that she put up. I'm just going to burned into my brain this view of her. I know she's in the room getting ready for school because next year she's away. And so taking just even little moments of, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to take a photograph in my mind of this moment. It's essential for our well-being, because it ignites the perspective for each relationship that we have in our life, and it prioritizes, right, what's most important. And that's essentially what you both are saying. I am so grateful for the both of you. I know the universe brings good people together, and I'm so happy that the both of you have learned so many great things. And I hope you guys can come back, because we didn't talk about parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for having us. And of course, we'll be back whenever you want.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Home Therapy with Anita Yokota. If this episode resonated with you, consider passing it along to a friend, family member, coworker, or roommate. Spread the love, one home therapy session at a time. New episodes of Home Therapy are released every Tuesday. Subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. To leave a rating or review of the show, head to Apple Podcasts and let me know what you think. I love hearing from you. Not to mention, you can stay in touch with me throughout the week, seeing behind-the-scenes info and sneak previews of upcoming guests by subscribing to my website, anitayokota.com. All information about today's show and guests will be linked in the description of this episode. Thanks again for listening. I adore our time together so much, guys. Let's keep our intentions focused and calm, and as always, use your home as therapy.